Thank you for hanging in there. I know last session of the day, hopefully the cookies and stuff hold you over, but I'm between you and dinner and a cold drink. So I'll try to keep this brief, not keep you too long. But I want this to be interactive. Let's have a discussion. I appreciate the feedback. I also have some live polling slides in there, so I can get some audience input. So phone use is encouraged during this. We have a couple. A little about me. I'm Joe Svott. I was a Pitt alumni. I did the PhD program here in 2016 to 2020. I've been with a company called Lucy for about 2 years. Got my ATP, got a background in mechanical engineering. I do research engineering, I suppose. Whenever I find out what that means, I'll let you know. I'm still working on it, but I get involved in a lot of our testing, a lot of our cushion work, whatever it may be, some of the standards work as well. I get to travel a bit, meet clients, which is always fun. So thank you all for attending, and we're going to get started. So like I said, Lucy, which I hope by now at this point in the conference you've heard of, because the exhibit hall is closed, so I can't demo our safety system, which is our main product. But I hope you all got a chance to check it out. Over 300 units out there, 40 different states, 10 different models across 4 manufacturers. Lots of awards and recognition, and it's really fun. So they keep me honest, and it's great. So it's a little about me, but I want to know a little about you. So this is part, if you use your phone, see if this QR code works. If not, slido.com and this code, and figure out what you guys do. So hopefully I can tailor some of the information to maybe your more specific roles. Clinicians are here. Lots of clinicians representing. Good job. Well, you got others. Is that like students, or I threw another in there? Manufacturers, researchers. All right, great. So it looks like we have not an even distribution, but we have some diversity. We have all stakeholders, maybe some end users in the room as well. So we got a whole stakeholder group, which is fun. So we can get input from everyone that's involved in this process. Quick formality on the learning objectives. We're talking about factors that change pressure inside a cushion. We're going to hit a little bit on the Redsrick and Rogers pressure time curve. And we'll talk about the difference between a little bit of air cushion pressure and what that surface pressure could be that you see with like a pressure map. Okay. Hopefully this is not a new statement. Pressure injuries are bad, and they're a problem. If we had solutions that were whole encompassing, we would not have any more pressure injuries, right? There's a lot of factors that play here. Some of the stats behind them: 1 in 5 with an SCI develop a pressure injury at some point. So 20% of the spinal cord injury population. That's a pretty high number, in my opinion. Their cost: $20,000 to $150,000 per injury. So that's like the medical costs, associated costs with whatever kind of downtime. That's going to vary based on severity, everything like that. But it's a lot of money, right? We talk about an industry that we have a disadvantaged population at times that can't afford the lost wages or can't afford those medical costs. So that can be a very prohibitive barrier to them living their life. National Pressure Injury Advisory Panel. So they publish a guideline on this, and they reference the Medicare standard that says this is a never event. So it's something that's preventable, but it's still occurring anyway, which means we need better resources or better education or something to help prevent the occurrence of these. And acute care rates at 20 to 40%. No other preventable event occurs as frequently. That's a bold statement. It's a very bold statement. So just want to touch on that severity of it. Okay, so like I said, I was a Pitt grad. Pitt, to those fellow alumni and students in the room, we love the ICF. We use it for everything. It is in most of our classes, if not all of them. International classification of functioning on disability. And what it does is it shows you, it's one of the models that can show you all the factors that involve, whether that be the medical condition, but the person itself. So when we look at a pressure injury, body functions. So you could have reduced function. You could, because mainly you're gonna have to remain stationary to heal that potentially. Once again, it's very dependent. There could be pain associated with it, healthcare costs. If we look into the activity, we're gonna have reduced activity most likely. A lot of the protocols put you on a rest program. When we look at participation, if you're not out and doing things, you're not living your life to the full extent, because we talked in other sessions that, you know, we have the in the home rule, but life is not just lived in the home. We live in the communities, we work, we do everything. So everyone should have that opportunity, but it could lead to social isolation, reduced independence. And then if you can't go to work, you can have lost wages. So you can see how this can compound, right? And that all combined also, there could be mental health challenges with that, and accepting that, or being whatever the stressors added into the equation. So it's not just the injury itself. There's a lot that goes with it. And the cause isn't very clear. I mean, they're called pressure injuries, right? So we know pressure is one factor, but do we know all the factors? Do we know how those factors interact? Do they compound? Are they independent? So assistive technologies, principles and practice, this is from the 5th edition. They list all these factors that can play into pressure injury development. So the demographics, we talk about disability as a whole, where it transcends many demographics, whether that be socioeconomic, race, gender, etc. Well, so do pressure injuries. So we have that, education, employment, onset time, the activity, nutrition is a big one that's come up a lot. Smoking, skin monitoring, activity levels, context, so the microclimate, the caregiver support, what resources are available for the person to heal a pressure injury or to prevent one. If it's a moisture issue, can they reduce that moisture or have someone help them reduce that moisture? Human factors, the diagnosis, body weight, sitting posture, skin moisture. Let's get in that. And then the technology. This conference is heavily about the technology, but is it fit for them? Is it the reason they're getting a pressure injury? And what condition is it? Is it serviceable? Is there cushion, foam that's compressed too low that's not giving them ample support or something like that? Is there a hole in their air cushion? So things to consider. But one thing we typically do if the pressure injury is probably ischial tuberosities or a location similar to that, a clinical recommendation, correct me if I'm wrong, is to put them on a dry flotation air cushion. So we want to redistribute that pressure and try and reduce some on the ITs and go along with offloading. We want to make sure we clear that pressure completely at some point. And heat and moisture control, which can be challenging depending on the cushion, the material, incontinence covers, what have you. There's a lot that goes into that. And skin checks. There still has to be skin checks. They still need that visual awareness, and that can be tough for an individual by themselves, but hopefully they have a caregiver support or some support to make that happen. So let's talk about offloading a little bit. This is the Resnick and Rogers pressure time curve that was originally developed in 1975, and it says, hey, if you have this much pressure for this amount of time, you're at risk for a pressure injury or something negative happening. So you want to be down in the acceptable range. And a lot of the pressure data is millimeters of mercury. Does anyone know why?
Because sphygmomanometer sees these millimeters of mercury.
Okay, and what do you use a sphygmomanometer for?
Blood pressure.
blood pressure. Yes. So it's all related back to blood pressure. And we'll talk about it a little later, but capillary flow, refill of the tissue, getting fresh blood in there, old blood out. So anyway, this is a very nice, pretty graph, but this is complex rehab. Does everyone fit into the same graph, into the same cushion, in the same scenario? So in 2008, 2009, these were published. They did a revision to the curve and an update because they started including different tissue types and based on your body mass and things covering bony prominences and how much fatty tissue is there. And it says, hey, this isn't for everyone, this one perfect line. There's going to be factors that change it. So, for example, body weight. It's going to change what your tolerable level is based on the tissue there. So just important to note about that. It's not the silver shoe that fits everyone. It's a unique challenge, and your clinical recommendations and everything like that's going to have to adjust based on those person's factors and the whole ICF. Okay. Another question. So what do we know? Is there something I missed? You can throw it up there. We can chat about it real quick. Costly. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. What else we got? They're bad. Yeah. Okay. Poor compliance with inflation. That's an interesting one. Painful, frustrating, preventable. Okay. Absolutely. Long time to heal. Offloading versus air. That's a good one too. Shear. Yeah. We're not going to get into shear too much. That's a whole another probably hour session on shear if you want to. Multifactorial. All right. So as you can see, like we talked about a little earlier, there's a myriad of factors, things to consider, and I don't envy the boots on the ground folks that have to balance all those factors and come up with solutions that work. It's a very tough job, and I applaud you all for doing that. I get to sit in an office and test things. So, all right, let's look at air cushions because that's why we're here. So overall, air cell cushions appear to provide superior immersion and shear reduction. Okay, so everyone pretty much agree with that? Is that an accurate statement? Immersion, sitting into the cushion, more as if it's foam, you're probably sitting on top of it and only sinking a little bit. Well, we can use pressure maps. Found this one from Vio. I mean, they're using it for marketing purposes, but I'm borrowing it. And you can look and you can see your heat maps and you can see how you can get immersion just based on cushion selection and distribution of pressure, right? But the key is it's immersion and envelopment. To where you're spreading that pressure. So Dr. Brienza from Pitt, one of his studies, skin protected cushions have a lower incident rate of pressure injuries. Very careful wording. It's a lower incident rate. It's not they eliminate pressure injuries. It's a lower incident rate. They eliminate pressure injuries, we'd have no recurrence rate. It'd be zero. It'd be wonderful. But that's not the reality. Okay. Last question. Challenges with air cushions. I think I threw ones in there that you can choose. So I want to see what the consensus is. And then if there's other ones I missed, we'll chat about them. We'll throw them out. Like it's working. Curious. No? No? All right. Someone who has it open, throw me some of those options in there. What do we got? Underinflation. Overinflation. Show of hands, underinflation. Issue? Challenge? Okay. We'll do the opposite. We just did under. We'll do overinflation. Ooh, more popular. Okay. Give me another one. What else did I list on there? Non-maintained. Okay. Show of hands, a little bit. Okay.
Catastrophic failure.
Catastrophic failure. That's okay. Anything else? Anything else important? Okay. Some of the ones I consider stability is a challenge. It's a flotation. It's dry flotation. You're floating. If you're trying to stabilize the pelvis, you're going to have to use other means to help increase that stability. Microclimate and moisture that we talked about before. They're a rubber compound for most of them, right? So they can trap heat, moisture. You need to be able to wick that away, depending on the cover. If you have incontinence covers, things like that. Emergent envelopment are not offloading because they're distributions of pressure. They're not removal of pressure. I define offloading personally, as a removal of pressure from an area. But if you're distributing it, you're just transferring it from one to the other. And if you don't get full offloading unless you're going to removing all the pressure. That's just my opinion. I'm open for debate. Maintenance, so take care of them. Hopefully they're not exploding too much. How did it?
The tire rips them open or what?
Okay, gotcha.
Pops and you didn't notice.
Okay, so then your bottom sitting on your seat pan and whether it be the sling, insert, or if it's power, a rigid metal piece. Okay, so you're losing the benefits of it.
Sliding transfers.
Okay, so is the cushion moving when you're transferring and then? Okay, gotcha. So it kind of plays into the stability for not only while you're in the device, but trying to get in and out.
Get them and then they're putting on a darn footer sling, or they put something like an incontinence cover on top and just disregards the whole piece of it.
Okay, so you're losing some of the benefits by maybe not exact proper use. Okay, we got other points?
On the robo ring where the air cushion or that feel cushion or the pressure relief, and that's the only thing that an OT or people might do, and just really minimizes their role. To one where other people just throw it onto a home care referral, they feel that's the job done. And it's research that that's not what we do. We think outside.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Did everyone mostly hear that? So other factors that play in, thinking outside the box, more than one brand, considering all the options, all the factors. Is that a correct summary? Okay. All right. It can be challenging. Yeah. They have their benefits though, but so I think that plays into the maintenance and the proper setup. It can be tricky.
Saying, but they think that if it's an air cushion, they don't need to do any other type of pressure relief, like that's it, like they won't do any other thing.
Okay. Yeah, I still say you have to offload. That's my opinion is I would still offload on air cushion, but not a clinician, just a researcher. Okay. Environment of use. How many seen issues here? In the back? Okay, not what airplane travel. That's a good one. Long term.
Jobs at welding or machine shop.
Yeah. Yeah. So gotcha. So temperature challenges with hot things and things that can melt. Okay, that's interesting. Where have you seen that? Like certain states or regions of the world?
Very hot.
Okay, you go from the air conditioning to the hot outside in New Mexico or something, and it's warm. Okay, great. All good points. Thank you for the input. So this is our guideline, right? We have a ½ inch to an inch to play with to have a properly inflated, properly deflated, however you want to consider it. We have this space on the ischial tuberosities. And we just have ½ inch to an inch to work with. That's not a ton. So call it a centimeter roughly. Sorry, I'm bad with unit conversions, but how many people think they get this perfectly right every time? No? Did you calibrate your hand? That's your sensor. Can you dial it in? Right? It takes a lot of time, right? A lot of OJT to get it right. And to your point, training the caregiver or family member or the user to be able to maintain that can be challenging. I absolutely agree. So let's talk about air cushions. If we want to say, can we say they're a balloon? Maybe roughly assimilate them to a balloon. So whenever you put them in a vacuum, was that too quick of a video? Let's see if it'll play again. Just go back. So they're applying a vacuum with the balloons in there. So they're reducing the external pressure around the balloons, so the balloons expand. One even pops, I believe. So where would we see that? Someone mentioned air travel, right? Cabin pressurization, things like that. Altitude, okay. What are we referring to? Rocky Mountains, higher than that? Compared to sea level, something?
Any of it, really high mountain ranges.
Yeah, okay. So the question is, how high can you go before it's a problem? What's the rule? All right. What about this one? So he heated water, put it in an aluminum can, put it in an ice bath. We're talking about air. Air is gases. Gases are temperature reactive. When we cool them, they shrink. What do you think is happening in the air cushion? Is it just same temperature all the time? Is it fluctuating? Okay. All right, let's talk about another fun pit thing that I love to talk about, evidence-based practice. So what is the data telling us? How many have seen data-driven presentations here in the last couple of days? Sure, a lot, right? How many have seen a new technology here that they haven't seen before? Yeah, good show of hands. Okay, head nods, I'll take those too. How many, does it include sensors? I like sensors. I work for a sensor company, but it's increasing. So shameless plug there. I'm sorry. But it just keeps growing. It's in everything. It's on my wrist, it's in my pocket, it's in my computer. It's in more of the devices on that showroom floor than I've ever seen before. At the last time we were able to be in person. Health data metrics. I think there's a presentation on that too, right? Some of the repair data was presented, large data sets, and how we use them and how we can make informed decisions. And Lucy specifically wants to take that and inform users. But really that means all stakeholders to make good decisions about their health and their healthcare. So scientific evidence, your clinical experience, because we have a large majority of clinicians in here. So sure, it doesn't matter if you've been doing it a month or years or decades, it all matters. And then the patient values, which is very important. What are their goals? How do you accomplish them? So that's right. Excuse me 1 second. Something went wrong in my settings. So we have headphone. There we go. Maybe it wasn't plugged in all the way. Jeez for that. Let's see if this works. Today we are at the historic railway that descends to Pikes Peak. And what we're doing is we're studying the environmental effects on air pressure of air cushions and testing Lucy Air as we ascend in elevation and descend in elevation. So we're going to watch everything expand as we go up in elevation.
My job today is to ride in the chair and adjust the pressure and the cushion based on the alerts that are sent up by ICO. Green lights means your pressure is in the ideal zone. If the light on the positive side is solid red, that means that your pressure is low and you need to add air to the cushion. If the light on the negative side is solid red, that means that your air pressure is high and you need to remove air from the cushion. On the way up, we got several high pressure alerts from using air, and you need to remove air from the cushion.
The balloons, which simulate what the air cushion is doing. Essentially, in an air cushion or full air cushion, it's acting like a balloon, reacting to the environment, expanding, contracting based on temperature and pressure.
So about 2/3 of the way down the mountain, the bottom of my pelvis was actually hitting the seat pan. Bottoming out's an issue because it's a risk of pressure injury. I was expecting some change in the cushion pressure, but I wasn't expecting to really be able to feel it. And it was kind of strange being able to feel the cushion sinking down towards the seat pan.
The cushion's increase in pressure behaved as expected. We see a product and then us with another pure alert saying we needed to get air from our cushion as we assembled. And we expected that.
Okay, so they don't keep me in the office all the time. I can do fun things like that. So we went to Pikes Peak. It was fun. We wanted to do a little fun example to prove a point. Some side notes on it though. I don't have IRB approval. I don't work at a university. I don't have access to a diverse patient population, but I do have coworkers, and so I can use them. And my boss is cool. They volunteers them. It's great. But seriously, we knew there was going to be a risk involved in a drastic change in atmospheric pressure, and I couldn't expose anyone to that in good conscience. Like that would not be good. And a user could be more sensitive to those changes. So I used we'll call him my healthy coworker. Standard bony prominences, maybe. Okay. What do we see? Temperature variation, right? It's Pikes Peak. We didn't get all the way to the top because of a wind advisory, but still, we went up to 12,000 some odd feet. Pretty chilly up there compared to what it was down at the base in Colorado Springs. We had 100 millimeters of mercury in atmospheric pressure change in about 6,000 foot of elevation. So it's a big amount. Anyone know commonly what you see internal pressure of a cushion is? All right, how about high or low? Is it higher and lower than a PSI? Higher than a PSI? Okay, all right. So based on my experience testing with most of my coworkers, I can tell you they probably sit in the high 30s, low 40s of millimeters of mercury. 1 PSI is 51 millimeters of mercury. We're talking what, 0.6 of a kilopascal. It's very, very low pressure, very low. So it's hard to measure, turns out. And this is extreme case for fun, but does anyone see how this could impact a user's like everyday life? So let's get into some of the results. I won't go too deep into the data. I know I'm an engineer and I like numbers, but I put pretty pictures too to help. So Carl's target pressure, 41 millimeters of mercury. And if you look at the numbers on a pressure map, it doesn't align. They're not the same. That interface pressure is not the same as your internal pressure that's distributed. Even if you compare averages, it's not going to line up. The way pressure maps are built and a whole bunch of other factors, I'm just going to say they don't equate. I've tried. Trust me, tried. But they correlate. So you'll see that pressure map change based on the internal pressure. We'll just leave it at that for now. All right, this is an estimation because we heard in the video that we reduced pressure on the way up, correct? This is if we did not reduce his pressure at all and left that cushion balloon on the way up, he would have went from 41 to what we estimate about 67 millimeters of mercury. So when we got back to the office, we captured this. What would this look like? So this is not actively managing your cushion when you go about your daily life. And that's gonna be a problem. You're gonna be at risk for a pressure injury. It's not a good pressure map. I wouldn't want someone leaving the clinic looking like that if it were me. So let's look at what you look like at the top, 46 millimeters mercury. So this is managing. So good comparative difference there. Not perfect, but you know, we can work with this. And these are the pressure reliefs. So this is data from inside the cushion, monitoring that air pressure. By the way, he's on a single chamber cushion. So we're monitoring the whole cushion, one chamber essentially. And if you look, you'll see the rise and a drop, rise and drop, rise and drop. So 5 times over, we had to remove air from that cushion to keep him at a safe level. We're monitoring it, alerts, remove air, and keep Carl safe. So at the base, we left the cushion pressure constant at the top. So 12,500 feet, came back down. He's bottomed out at the bottom, 28 millimeters of mercury. He was complaining about it, so I know it was uncomfortable. But that's how it can be unsafe very easily. So you're gonna have a bigger problem. Got to manage your cushion. All right. But I mean, Pikes Peak, probably an extreme example. I don't know how many people are going up there on an average day. I don't know how many air cushion users are going up there on an average day. It is accessible, so that's good. But it's cold at the top and it's windy and just less oxygen. It's not fun to breathe. But what about this? One World Trade Center. So you start at the base, you can go up, according to Google, 1,258 feet in the building alone. So if we do some quick math, 5 pressure reductions over 6,000, 5 to 6,000 feet. That means every 1,000, 1,200 feet. That's what it means. You get the top of that building, you're gonna have to take air out. Your cushion will be overinflated. That's plausible, right? Plausible. Okay. So when you're sitting in a range of your 1/2 inch to inch, what if you're on the high end? What if you're at 7/8, 3/4, 7/8 maybe? Duquesne Incline, Pittsburgh folks, yes, yeah, all right. 400-foot elevation gain from downtown here to Mount Washington. So if you're at the top end of that, there's a potential you go up that incline, you're going to need to take air out of your cushion. That's a realistic example. That's something we can see. Someone could do that. Air travel. There's a lot of this. Airplane cabins are pressurized to 8,000 feet. Anyone know how much elevation we're at right now, roughly? 350? About 1,200. Yeah, 1,200 or some. It's okay. I'm not gonna hold you to it. It's fine. Just a guess. Denver, Mount High City, 5,280 roughly. So let's call it 4,000 difference. That's just getting there. Once you land, you're gonna have this incredibly ballooned cushion, not to mention what happens on the plane as you ascend and descend. So what about this one? Storms? Barometric pressure will drop in the atmosphere or a rise in the atmosphere. Post-storm even, right? It rolls out, barometric pressure comes up. Now your cushion's underinflated. 20 millimeter difference atmospherically. I don't have data yet on what that translates to internal pressure change, but I can tell you it's going to change. I know that it's going to be affected. So the question is, how much is a problem? And this is where we get into how little it takes for a person to go from a safe level to an unsafe level. I don't have the answer, but I can tell you what I tested on my coworkers. I can tell you that when I sat them at their ideal pressure, they don't like me doing this setting, so I let them self-set. It's fine. But we get good data that we can at least make some inferences about. They set that at their comfortable, safe level, have them self-check, say, hey, I'm in my range. And then I was like, okay, keep letting air out so you start feeling that seat pan underneath you, because we have a lot of power chairs, so we have metal seat pans. On average, it's only about 3 to 4 millimeters of mercury pressure has to come out of that cushion for you to go to a safe level to IT starting to touch the seat pan. It's not much. It's very little. Fractions of a PSI. very little pressure. That's going to change based on body structures, mass, positioning. And so, but what we see over duration, so I have my coworkers once again sit in cushions for hours, literally hours. And I was like, I want to know what happens in your cushion when you're just working your desk, going around the office, whatever you're doing. It stays, the scale is hard to read, but for all intents and purposes, it stays in a pretty narrow range. Even when you're active and moving, it'll come back to baseline when you get back to a, we'll call it a good sitting position. So this is where Carl starts the bottom. Remember, he was at 41 millimeters of mercury target pressure. So this is a reduction of 5. That's it. That's it. That's all it takes. It's not a lot. I mean, call it, you do the math on what a percentage drop that is, but talking very low pressure. So if you develop a leak or some issue, how much time do you have to get transferred out, to get to a safe surface for you? Good question. I want to know more. So I want to do continuous monitoring. We have, set and forget options. We have different things that provide data, but do we have the right data to make informed decisions? Now, walking around the exhibit hall, there's new technologies. Great, I'm for it. Let's find effective solutions. Let's work together to do it. But we still don't have enough scientific evidence to manage that. We have clinical experience, there's plenty in this room, right? We know what the patient wants. The patient doesn't want a pressure injury. They don't want lost wages, downtime, any of that. But do we have this? Do we have the best scientific evidence yet? I see no, head shakes. Okay, right? Because we wouldn't have pressure injuries anymore if we had all the scientific evidence. I wish we did. So this is where I get to talk about one of our products, Lucier. So it is this fun little box that we can track cushion pressure. So it is, it's this big, very tiny, little hose on it, and we connect it to an adapter, go over your cushion valve. But this is what we use for the study. You saw in the video, there's benefits. We're going to track time and seat because we know when you sit in that cushion, the pressure goes up. So we say, hey, there's someone in that cushion. Accurate time and seat data. Do we have that by any other means right now? Maybe there's people that have done some sensor stuff, right? They've put pressure sensors just for someone to sit down on, a little resistor or something like that. It's been done. It's not really commercially, it's not been done a ton because they're power, they're looking for joystick movements or something like that. You don't know if someone's walking that chair around or someone's driving it, but this one's hard to fake. It's hard to fake time and seat that way. Offload time. When you do an offload with an air cushion and get that pressure reduction, we can tell the pressure is going to drop out and that internal pressure is going to go down. Programmable seating, sure, yeah. Now I know when you're sitting in that cushion. So what's your prescribed offload time and interval? How long and how often? 2 minutes every 30? What are we? Does it vary? Every 15? Every hour? How many people do egg timers on phones to remind people to pressure relief? Okay, but that egg timer is going to run what, on the hour, every hour, or something like that? What if we know when the person sits down, then we start the timer and we say, hey, you've been in here 30 minutes, time for a pressure relief. I know you may not be in a safe space to do that, you may have to wait, but it's at least better information. Alerts for inflation, deflation. So we can monitor, right? We know when to reduce that air, run out of that air. And users control their seating health. It's just information to them, and it's evidence for them. So just fun little pictures we can get in our app, give users the data they need for their health and success. You can do push alerts to yourself, caregivers, what have you. Clinicians know what's happening. So we use this with our safety system. If someone gets into a compromised position, say you have multiple low pressure alerts coming over a series of time, you could have a leak, right? You know, the pressure keeps going low. So you can alert someone that can get you assistance or get you to a safe surface. Seating and mobility with level 3 smart technology. It's coming. More people will be doing it. This one exists. All right. But it's not all about that product and everything like that. This is about tools. This whole conference is what tools are in your toolbox. There's no one size fits all. There's no, the best cushion or best chair is the one that works for that user, that wheelchair rider. That's the best one. There's not one solution for everything, but we want to give you tools, sharp tools, tools in your toolbox that you can pull out and say, hey, is this an appropriate solution? So we have a web visualizer. You can plug this into the web and go, okay, now I can visually show my client what's going on inside that cushion when they move, whether that be side shifts, whether they do a full offload, a tilt and recline combination, something like that. My favorite combination is to use it with a pressure map, okay? Because if they have sensation, they can feel that pressure transferring to their back, and then you can see, oh yeah, internal pressure goes down. So you can justify why continuous monitoring can help them stay on top of their offload program and keep them safe. Okay, so who's it for? What are we doing? Well, if you have Lucy, that's one way. But you need an air cushion. That's just reality. We're monitoring air cushions. Preferably single chamber. If you're using multi-chambers, if the pass-through valve is open, then we're monitoring the whole cushion. So it depends on the client. But if you have someone that meets these criteria, let us know, because we want to work with them. We want to get actual user data, make the product better, get better information for the field. But it's not just regular air cushions. What about hybrids? Foam air hybrids, J Fusion, something like that. We can monitor that too. If it's a single valve, we can monitor it. The exceptions are being where we have larger valve diameters. So we fit most models, not all. Some of them have larger valves. It's hard to make connections that fit everything. It's hard to make a headrest that fits everyone, right? So there's some limitations, but we want to know. We want to help. We want to get data. We want to keep that person safe. So let us know. I'll have business cards at the end. Okay. Skin health versus pressure variation. Super important. We want evenly distributed pressure, but we want to know what's going on inside. Well, we know it's largely constant. What happens? We did some drive testing. We driving at things. We have a safety system, so we drive at obstacles. We stop, slow down. We drive at curbs. We did testing with all that, and those impulse forces carry through, and then it settles back down. So largely speaking, it's going to stay fairly constant unless you have a leak. Temperature, your body heat will heat it up a little bit over time. You go out in your environment, it'll change, it'll fluctuate. But you can check it, and you can change and adjust it accordingly. And so one thing we do have now on this is we're not just alerting all the time, because we want to make sure that you're in a good sitting position before you make adjustments to your cushion. If you're in tilt, maybe not like a full tilt, maybe not a good time to adjust your cushion. One, it's probably difficult. Two, how do you know you're in the correct level? So when you set this and you set your correct level, you set your offload threshold, set your critical pressure. So how low can that go and still be safe? That's where the clinician comes in, right? You have to calibrate a hand. Well, probably suppliers too, but large clinician crowd. So you set those and then say, okay, well, this is your seating posture. Here's your good seating position. You're stable, everything like that. Going to lock all that in. And then you need to come back to that position from whatever you're doing to be able to check. That's how you're going to be accurate. And say, okay, this is where I was. This is where I'm at now. So something changed. I need to adjust. Or I'm good. Could be I'm good. I hope it's good. So we want to understand better offloading. This goes back to venial and capillary flow, right? Anyone know the history on how we got into our offload recommendations? Anyone track down all the papers? I did. It's fun. It's a good time. Regardless of where you start, they all go back to a paper from the 1930s that was out of Rancheros Los Amigos, and it talked about blood flow. And it was saying for capillary refill, so fresh blood in, old blood out, however you want to define it, you need less than about 30 millimeters of mercury of external pressure for that blood flow to happen in the capillaries. So not your veins and arteries, the small little capillaries that go to the tissue. That's what it's all based on, right? And then the studies for the increments, well, they studied in 10-degree increments. So, you know, is it 40? Is it 42? I mean, it's a lot. Trust me, the more increments you do, the longer that study is, the harder it is to do. But that's the basis. And so you remember that our evidence-based practice is still based on what's studied and something that was done. And every study, every product has limitations. You have to understand that. But we still want to promote that flow. So we tested it with a lot of my coworkers, put them in a good, nice offload. They all have sensation, so I can confirm that way, confirm with pressure mapping. About 30% reduction is what we chose as our default. Once again, you can set it, but we need to start somewhere. So roughly at 25 plus degree tilt, and I think I did 120 seat to back angle, but hey, rough starting point. We'll get better. Smart technology. It's a buzzword now. But what is actually smart? Is it connectivity? Is it sensors? Is it data? Well, we want smart to be no more pressure injuries. We want to get rid of the recurrence rate. You know, once you have a pressure injury, you're more likely to get a second. Okay. So how can we work to mitigate this? What is recurrence rate? 31% at the same site? That's high. So that means our intervention strategies aren't as effective as they could be. 21% at a new site. So they're still occurring. It's unfortunate. So we really want to work together. Lucy has an initiative called Sandbox. We like to play, we like to tinker. Anyone see the session on the Probial Mini Explorer? Put sensors on it. That's what we do. We put sensors on stuff. It's fun, but we like to tear into things and play. So Sandbox is our initiative to reach out to anyone in the industry and say, help us help the field. Help us gather data to make informed decisions, to build the evidence-based practice for things that aren't monitored. I looked for internal pressure studies. I didn't really find much. It's tough. But we have Sandbox. So what do you want to do? Data logging? We can help with that. Sensors, we can help with that. It would be the app, ROS2 interface. If it's with our safety system, we can track. You know, we're integrated a safety system into the wheelchair operating system, the RNet system. So we have access to other information there that most of those data loggers that are built don't connect to. So they're not reading that. That's how we got joystick motions for the Explorer Mini, things like that. So we're here, we want to help, and we want to do more research. We already have some partners, University of Washington, Shirley Ryan, and Hurl, right here. So this is my contact. Feel free, I'll have business cards up here. You can come check out the products. We can come look at cushions and how it interacts and whatever you want. But this is really a call to advance the field. With hopefully some fun videos in between and a little bit of education on. It's not a set and forget. Those air cushions need management. You have to educate your users on, I mean, they're gonna need to put them on the right way first. Let's start there. But maintaining that air pressure inside them and seeing their environment of use. And so not to add more to your plate for your 1 hour time session of evaluation or fitting or whatever, but we want to help the field grow and help get users safe. That's what it's all about. So do we have questions? Gotta be so. Good question. It's a really good question. So this is our little, I don't know, we'll call it our valve for lack of a better term, but we have this little valve right here. And we basically replace, we slide over the existing valve, and it's just a matter of opening it and then we put locks in it. So when you open it, it locks out, and you lock it there and it stays. So you slide your pump right over it, you fill it up, and then you can close it, put the pump on it, and then it's sealed. So just as easy, if not easier than the twists of the valves. Just like you would normally. Yeah, so we just replaced the interface so that we can monitor the pressure in between there. So the original valve on the cushion is open the whole time. Good question. Either one.
That's all there's. I adjust air and get them out of their cushion, adjust the air and get them back on it. So in lifetime, how well does that work?
That's a good question. Okay. We are continuously monitoring at something like 100 hertz. So we're very accurate also down to like 0.1 millimeters of mercury. So as soon as you open that valve, you'll see if we did the visualizer, it would just drop immediately because the pressure's gone when the valve is open. But you close it, you get a new reading. So it'd be instantaneous. So that pressure is redistribution. If you have a Quattro, it's going to take that back chamber, right, a long time to come to the front. So you might have to massage it a little bit. Still the same properties of the cushion. We can't do anything about that, but we can monitor it very quickly. So if you're pulling it out, you're gonna have a hard time to monitor it. We're assuming that the user's in it when we're adjusting it, so we can monitor it based on what their body weight is on it. Because when there's no user, it's hard to get a reading. It's very, very low pressure. It's like it's under 5 millimeters. You won't really measure it.
So, I think, are there two red lights that left and right?
Yeah.
I thought about moving
Oh,
to
sorry.
different color so that people might be able to differentiate.
Yes. So they're red and green actually. So, and they have different light patterns and different sounds. So if you're high or low, there's different numbers of beeps. They appear on different sides. So we have auditory and visual depending on what you're doing. And then the only audio that we keep on all the time is offload. So when you go back, you don't have to look at this. You go into a tilt and it'll beep when you're at your preset threshold. But the other ones, when you get to your good seating position, you press it and then the appropriate alert will display and tell you where you're at. Good question.
Self-service or anything like that. I have a lot of companies that don't have rather than very rural.
So it does not. It communicates to our safety system. Okay. The question was, does it require cell service to communicate? It does not. So it goes to the Lucy safety system, and the safety system over Wi-Fi or cell will send that data. But it's still going to operate on itself and be a standalone device. Just if you want the app information or the more data, then you need Wi-Fi. Yes. Yep. So it can store it for a little while and then push it up whenever, if you go outside into your backyard and then come back in. Yes, absolutely. Good question. More questions? I know I'm keeping you all by dinner, so, but I'll be around to answer any other questions. Oh, one up here. Okay, the question is, if small temperature changes or just going outside quickly is enough to cause a change in the air cushion pressure. The short answer is I didn't have enough time to study it that deeply. But what I'm going to assume is that a small variation is going to take a while to carry through to the internal pressure. We obviously, the Pikes Peak cog rail, we did an accelerated example there. So I think it's not going to be every 5 minutes you need to do this. It's going to be a longer duration interval, but still most likely you're going to have to do it multiple times a day to check your cushion. Thank you. Question? Anything else? Funding right now, it's not technically for sale, so you don't have to worry about funding. We're looking to collect data with it to see before we go launch it into as like a fully fledged product. But I think I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but it's a small device. I want to make it affordable self-purchase. If you know, I won't get into the reimbursement side here because that could be very challenging. So those are the things we'll have to work out. But right now we want data to make sure we have a great product to get to market. Thank you. Good question. Anything else?